What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the Brave and Faithful podcast. Today, I have a Navy veteran of over 25 years. Currently, he is the Chief Revenue Officer of Kaatsu. Kaatsu is a equipment, the original blood flow restriction training device. I have John Doolittle. What's going on, John?
Hey, Red. Hey, Chief. How you doing, man?
I
Thanks,
appreciate
thanks for having me on.
I appreciate you for coming on, man. So
Yeah,
I
no
mentioned
worries.
you were a Navy veteran, but I was reading your bio there on the website. You also graduated from the Air Force Academy. Can you
Yep.
just explain to us how that how you got into the Air Force Academy and then made that transition to the Navy?
Yeah, sure. I was one of those Top Gun kids, I watched Tom Cruise in the mid '80s, and graduated from high school '88. Wanted to fly. So I looked at the Naval Academy. I looked at the Air Force Academy, and ended up going with the Air Force.
Yeah.
I was a swimmer, swam through college and stuff. And my junior year, President Bush 41 was the president then, and the administration said for that graduating class, only the top third of the cadets were going to go to pilot training. And they told us that my junior year. And so I started looking at other options. Reached out to one of my mentors, and he said, "Hey, you should join the Navy." I was like, "Oh, Mike, what are you talking about, man? I'm an Air Force guy." He's like,
Yeah.
no. Look into it. I think there's a program that you can do." And yeah, so I went in the Navy.
So when he went transition into the Navy, like were you kind of in the same field, same job, or
No, not at all.
okay?
So I transitioned to go to Buds to go to SEAL training.
Okay.
Um, that was on my paperwork, and then right before we graduated in May of '92, uh, they found out we had 4 Air Force Academy guys slotted for the same Buds class. So they told 2 of us that we couldn't go. So 2 guys did go to Buds, and the other 2 of us, Trevor and I, we went into the salvage Navy. So we went and learned how to drive ships and be hard hat divers, and kept trying to get into Buds. Every 6 months I submitted a new package, and it took me 3 years, but I finally got the Buds in like '95, graduated out of Buds in '96. I was a class 213 guy. So I was in Naval Special Warfare for basically '96 until I retired in 2017. So I've been out for 4 years.
Wow, awesome. And I mean, 25 years, right? Many different deployments, all kinds
Yeah,
of
all
operations
over the
all
map,
over the
man.
map. Yeah.
In
Um,
74 countries.
so kind of just I know that's kind of a lot, right? But what was some of your biggest takeaway from, from your time in the service?
Hmm. I I uh I think one of my biggest takeaways was how much you can really achieve with a small team of like-minded individuals. When you have a small team of people going after something, whatever the mission is, but
Right.
you put your minds together, especially when it's a team of individuals that have been through the same type of training and have dealt with some of the same, miserable experiences in the past. You kind of build a little bond there, like a brotherhood. And I was blown away the types of missions that we were entrusted with, and we were able to succeed because we just had really, really good dudes. I mean, you see it everywhere in the teams, but you see it everywhere in the Navy. You see it everywhere in the military. You got these young, junior guys and gals doing incredible work for this nation. That was my biggest takeaway.
So, you 25 years of service. How was, we talk a lot about transition on the podcast.
Hmm.
How was that for you? And how did you land, or how did you find out about this company called Kaatsu?
Well, so a couple of questions there. I'll start with the last one. I found out about Kaatsu because it is a rehab device. The PTs, I've had 12 orthopedic surgeries. The last two surgeries I had when I was at SOCOM headquarters in Tampa, the PTs used Kaatsu on me as a rehab tool, kind of
Okay.
an adjunct or another way to speed up rehab, and I fell in love with it. I mean, it's pretty simple. You take these elastic pneumatic bands, and if you're using them on your arms, they go up high on your arms, and they connect to a device that blasts a little bit of pressure in there and holds it for 30 seconds, and then releases for 5. And every time that happens, all that tissue that's distal of the band, or kind of downrange of the band that you're wearing, and
Mm-hmm.
same if you wear them on your upper legs, all that tissue vasodilates, or it expands or stretches open. You think of all your venous tissue in your veins stretching open for 30 seconds, and then you let it go. And then you stretch it open for 30 seconds. And when you do that continuously, you're introducing improved blood flow. You're opening those pathways up, and it really helps with your rehab. So I fell in love with this stuff, and even went out to Tokyo and met Dr. Sato, the inventor and founder. And so that's how I got introduced to Kaatsu. But I had no idea when I was using it as rehab that, I'd ever be working
Yeah.
for them. I think it's fair to say all active duty guys, when they're, just active duty personnel, when you guys are getting ready to roll out of the military, that last year is just full of a lot of different things. And what I would really suggest, and this was suggested to me, and it paid big dividends. There's an article, I think I might have sent it to you, but it's called like 50 Cups of Coffee, I think.
Yeah, I did read that. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if you have a show notes thing or something like that, but that'd be cool to kind of push that out, because what the basics of that article are: when you're getting ready to make a big change in your life, don't try to make that change. Don't try to make all those huge, massive decisions all by yourself. Leverage people that you know and trust, but maybe even more importantly, leverage people you don't know but are very successful, or maybe people that are in a field that you think you might be interested in, and invite them out for a cup of coffee. And it's amazing. I think the biggest takeaway from me as a military guy was having people that have been really successful in industry. You sit down, you're having a cup of coffee together, you're just shooting the shit, talking about stuff, and they're like, "Man, we really need people with leadership skills
Yeah.
in industry A, B, or C." And I think we as military guys don't realize how, I don't want to say we're all natural leaders, because that's not necessarily the case, but we've all been very well trained in leadership
Yeah.
skills, whether you know it or not.
The
Yeah.
standard is different, obviously, with,
Yeah.
like, and I think to your point, it's little things that for us, right? It's like, yeah, that's what we're supposed to do. It's not really common, would you say, in the civilian sector? Like,
No, not so much. It's I don't know. I never really gave it much thought. It's like you spend a career in the military, and
right.
leadership is just part of day-to-day operations. There's certain things you do, there's certain things you don't do, there's certain ways you talk to people, there's certain ways you definitely do not talk to people. When you have a contentious situation, there's certain ways you deal with it, and there's certain things you never do.
Yeah.
And you spent a career in the military, and we all grew up under mentors that taught that and kind of ingrained it into our DNA. And so it becomes very natural for us as military guys. But you go into industry, and it's very, very different, and it can be pretty cutthroat. I was very, very fortunate to fall into the team at Kaatsu, which is a very small organization, but we all know and trust, and we're able to discuss things. You know, we all don't have the same politics and the same backgrounds and whatnot, but it's a small, trusted group of people, and for me, going into a small organization, while that's not what I wanted to do initially when I was preparing for transition, as I started talking to more and more people with the 50 cups of coffee, as I started talking with more people, I started to realize, wow, maybe a big organization is not the right fit for me.
And I want to go back into Kaatsu. You said you used that while you were with the teams, right?
Yeah.
Is this device, how is this different from other devices? And you mentioned that you went to go see the creator in Japan. How did you go about actually working for the company?
Well, when I finished my second rehab, when they were using this stuff on me, I was also during that last rehab, I was also in the career transition phase. So I was talking with different people about what I thought I wanted to do. One of the things that was very high on my list, and I had moved pretty far along with the transition process with this, was going to work with Amazon, and I was going to work in the executive recruiting aspect of Amazon, or at least that's where I was applying for, and some other big organizations. But the more I start talking with people, the more I realized. Well, let me back up. I got a book here. Let me show you. I know here it is. So one of those cups of coffee meetings, I met this guy, and he said, "Hey, you should read this book," and it's called Startup Nation: The Story of Israel's Economic Miracle. Right there, it's there. You can see it. And my takeaway from that meeting, and he and I met 2 or 3 more times. I read that book, and it totally changed my outlook on what I wanted to do. I was really struggling with this, going to work for a very large organization, coming out of, arguably the biggest bureaucracy in America, the U.S. Department of Defense. I mean, that's not it's not bad necessarily. It's just it is what it is. I mean, it's a massive organization. Well, Amazon's kind of the same, right?
Yeah.
And his point to me was, and I don't think he was trying to change my mind, but he said, "Hey, look at it this way. You're going to go into a very large organization, and you're going to work in a very niche, very, very niche area of that organization, little small sliver of that big pie. No matter how well you do in that small sliver of that big pie, you're never moving out of that sliver. You're a retired military guy. You're going to go be work in recruiting, and you'll promote within recruiting, but you'll get to a certain point, and then that's it. Because once you're the director of recruiting, you're not moving out of there, right? The chances are highly unlikely that you're going to move out of there." And he said, is that really what you want to do? And I was like, well, yeah, I think so. But when you put it like that, I don't know. I'm not sure. I mean, I do want upward mobility, but I also want to be around. I want to be there for my kids. I don't want to be gone all the time. I just did that for 25 years. So I started questioning a lot of my original decisions. I read that book, and I went and I talked to him again. And I think when it really hit home for me was the idea of, if you go to work, that book's about startups, by the way.
Yeah.
So it's about startups in Israel and how successful they've been, and why startups in Israel, especially in Israel, are so very successful. And that's probably a whole nother conversation. But I had never thought about going to work at a startup. And after reading that book, I totally changed my mind. And the idea is, if you go to a startup as a retired military guy and you get in on the ground level or close to the ground level, let's say you're in the top 5 guys at the company, or top 10, or whatever. And let's say you do that for a year. And let's say the company succeeds. Okay, great. You're in on the ground floor and you get to ride that rocket ship. That's awesome. Okay, so that's good. Well, what if you join a startup and the startup fails and you lose your job, or it just tanks? Is that necessarily a bad thing? And that was Mark's question to me. Is that really a bad thing? And I was like, yeah, that sucks. Then I won't have a job. And he's like, no, think about it a little bit different perspective. You go to a startup, you're in on the ground floor, you're one of the top, 5 or 10 guys in the company, and let's say the company fails. You're now so much more valuable to the marketplace as a result of that experience. So now you're no longer just a retired military guy. You're now a retired military guy that was the chief, blah, 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 at a startup, and you did it for a year, and now you're done with that. So now you're a retired military guy, but maybe more importantly in the marketplace, you were the chief of business development, and now you go to another startup and you do it again.
Experience.
Yeah,
you've had experience.
Yeah, it kind of blew me away when he explained it like that. And that is the approach I took with Kaatsu, because Kaatsu, while it was big in Japan 4 or 5 years ago, in America, it was very, very small. It was essentially a startup here in the US. So I took that approach, fully understanding that I might not be there after the first year, but it made sense to me. I would be more valuable. I would have way more work experience in a wide variety of things, because in a startup, if you come in and there's only 5 people in the company, you're going to do a lot of shit.
Yeah.
You're going to be involved with the warehouse and storage stuff. You're going to be involved with research and development and new technology and sales and marketing and advertising, business development and revenue stuff. You're going to have your fingers in everything. So you learn a ton. So even if you just purposely went to a startup with the understanding that you were leaving in the year, you'd still be better coming out of it. So that took a lot of the stress off transition for me, was understanding that, yeah, man, it's totally cool. If it doesn't work out with the first one, when you go to another one, you can keep playing that game for a while. I got really fortunate. I stayed at Kaatsu for the whole four years, and I've been able to work with the military and veteran populations, like the wounded, ill, and injured population, which has been very rewarding for me. So the last 4 years, I've loved it. No complaints.
How long ago? You've been with the company for 4 years, but how long has Kaatsu been around as far as like created?
Well, it was in Japan. I mean, Dr. Sato started playing with all this stuff in the 60s.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's been in Japan for a long time, but I think they really got noticed when they did a 10-year cardiac rehab study at University of Tokyo Hospital. That's kind of like Japan's Harvard Medical School, kind of for them.
Okay.
They did this study. It was 10 years long. It was on 7,000 7,000 cardiac rehab patients, and it was all Kaatsu, these Kaatsu cycles and exercising the heart perfusion and all this stuff that they were doing. And the outcomes from this study were phenomenal. The hormonal markers, the biomarkers, the things that a lot of orthopedic rehab specialists also rely on. So it was doing a lot of good work in cardiac rehab. Then orthopedic rehab started getting interested in it. And then when you think about sports and trainers and coaches and PTs, when they see ortho rehab doing something, then they start taking notice. So they just started this groundswell of cardiac rehab, ortho rehab, and performance in the sports world. And that study ended in 2014. In 2015, right out of the gate, there were about 5 or 6 knockoff companies trying to do what Dr. Sato was doing.
Okay.
Now jump forward to 2021 at the Summer Games in Tokyo. China had 300 athletes that were using Kaatsu before and after events. We had several athletes. Japan had a ton of athletes. I think we had 47 countries, athletes using Kaatsu at the Summer Games. So it's definitely, it's I don't want to call it a rocket ship, but it's definitely a steady upward trend.
So is this something that's available for organizations or companies, or is this something like an individual person can purchase? Like how does that work?
Individuals can get it. They can
Okay.
get on our website is kaatsu.com right here. Kaatsu, Kaatsu. Is this a video podcast or is this a audio or is it both?
Yeah, it'll be both.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's an online store for individual sales. And what we found was during COVID, our individual sales went up significantly and our group sales, like our team sales went down. And that's because guys wanted a way to work out in the privacy and safety of their home without needing heavy weights. And that's part of what Kaatsu does. When you engorge the limb with blood like that and you start doing multi-joint movements with very, very light weight, it feels like heavy weight. So your brain thinks, say your arm, if I had the band on right now and I was just doing some multi-joint movement, your brain thinks the arm's working much harder than it actually is. It senses this metabolic stress. You start to get that lactic acid feel, that burning feel in your arm. Even though you're not moving any weight, your body reacts. There's a hormonal response as if you're lifting heavy weight. So yeah, during COVID, we got a lot of individual sales, but we're in the GSA schedule and catalog for military units and things like that. We work with ADS is the name of the company. They do our contracts in the military.
Awesome.
But yeah, companies, outside the military, sports teams, PT clinics, and individual sales, and in the military. Those are kind of the 4 biggies for us.
Okay. So you mentioned earlier that you've been with the company for 4 years now. And, I said in the beginning, you're the chief revenue officer, right? Explain to us what that means. And then also, what are some of the challenges that, you face while you've been with the company that you didn't really expect?
Well, chief revenue officer is kind of a fancy name for chief business development officer. I was told about 2 years ago, I was like, that's kind of an older name, change it to this. And I went to the CEO. I'm like, hey, Steven, what do you think about changing the name for my job title? And he just kind of looks at me. He's like, yeah, whatever, John, that's fine. But because we're a small company, so it doesn't. Yeah. It gets back to what I was saying before. It doesn't really matter what you're doing because your hands are in everything. We have these weekly meetings, and we're we're talking about, the way we're going to ruggedize this machine for the Marine Corps. They wanted this clip different. They wanted this weather or water resistant. They wanted it to be able to drop from 10 feet on concrete. So is that revenue officer stuff? No, but when the core of the company is only 4 or 5 people, you're involved in everything, and that gets back to what I was saying before. So yes, that is my job title, but it's, I don't want to say it doesn't mean anything, because of course it means something. It's on the business card, which is
Right,
cool, I
right.
guess. But we all help out on all levels. When there's a trade show, like there was a big trade show in Orlando just a couple of weeks ago. Bam, our team flies from all over, and we do the trade show. It doesn't matter what you do in the small company. When there's a trade show, we try to all participate, or some of us. So yeah, the next question you asked was like, what
Yeah, what are
have
some
I
of the
experienced in the company that I hadn't expected?
yeah, what are some of the challenges that you experience that you didn't really expect?
Okay, challenges are just another word for opportunities, right?
There you go.
Challenges for
Well, I mean, like,
me.
I guess after 25 years,
Yeah.
of service, right? Like, you work for a company. What are some of the things that you kind of hope that you've, after leaving the military, you've hoped to have and hope time for, but then, did the company being the company, did anything like traveling or things like that kind of take away from what you wanted to do after the service?
Yes. And the biggest challenge for me was the first year.
Okay.
And I think I'm probably speaking for 90% of military that go through transition when I say this. Um, when I left the military, I didn't have to leave. I was at 25 years. I was at 06 Navy captain. I could have stayed for 30. I could have done 30, no problem. My family was completely on board with me staying in another 5 years. The last deployment I was on was over a year. It was under 13 months, but over a year in Ghazni province in Afghanistan. Katie and I have 3 kids. During that deployment, I missed 5 birthdays.
Wow.
And I came back from that deployment, and I was like, yeah, man, I don't know. I came back from that deployment. I did another CO job. So I did 2. I was a commanding officer during that Afghan one. And then I came back and I did one of our forward deployed units in Germany. I did a CO tour there. And then I went and did a headquarters staff tour here. I'm in St. Pete right now. And so in Tampa's SOCOM headquarters. But I think coming home from that deployment and then going right into another commanding officer role where I was on the road a fair amount, I think at that point I was like, okay, I think I need to start thinking about getting out of the military. Like that was a lot. I think everybody has their threshold, and I think I realized, okay, I had met mine. So my big mistake, I think, and I think a lot of people make this mistake when they get out and they go to work for a new company. And it's a very generic statement, but we as military guys, we're very type A. We're given a mission, and I'm not saying this is always right, but it's how we think, right? Mission first.
Yeah.
And everything else is kind of second, third, tertiary, or whatever. And you go into a new company and it's like, hey, John, we'd like you to look at this, and think about that, and talk to these guys, and go do this, and think a lot about that, and I take that on as a military guy with a military mindset of, okay, that's my mission.
Right.
Let's go. Let's get some. And I was just going. I was building up all kinds of United miles, all kinds of Marriott points.
Oh,
And after that year, how did I think I was doing taxes or something that year, that, the next tax year. And I ended up looking at a calendar with how long I had been gone during the first year that I was with this company. And I had this, it was like a punch in the gut. I was like, whoa, I was gone more this year, on outside the military, than I was for any of the last 3 or 4 years I was in the military. Not including the 1-year deployment, of course. But that was kind of a little epiphany for me. I was like, whoa, wait a minute, what am I doing? I got out
right.
of the military to be more around, to be with my kids, to be available for my wife, to be part of more just regular day-to-day life. And I was gone all the time. I was doing good stuff for the company. And, nobody at the company was saying, hey, John, you're traveling a lot. Nobody's saying that. It's all kind of on me. I was building my own travel schedules. And so that was a big challenge for me, was after that first year, taking a step back and realizing it's okay to take a phased approach and do some long-term planning. And just because the CEO says this, and this, or something we want to focus on, it doesn't mean it has to be the focus tomorrow.
Right.
Some of these things are next quarter or next year, and I didn't realize that,
Yeah.
and I think that's a challenge for a lot of guys. I mean, you're still active, so you haven't transitioned out yet, but we'll stay in touch, and we'll see. I think it's real common, is, I guess, my
Yeah.
point.
So yeah, you had to kind of just take your gas off the pedal, so to say. And then but I think to your point earlier, like you made, right? Like, the military and the veteran community, how like we have a different set of standard when it comes to, you know, if we're given a mission, if there's a goal or objective that we have to meet. And I think, you just being out of the military and being with the company for the first 12 months, you were still in that kind of like that mindset, right? Like you had your own standard that you had to meet.
Yeah,
And
yeah, exactly.
but then you kind of had to, reflect and take a seat back and, you know, get the priorities straight, right? Like know why you wanted to get out of the military and do right by the family.
Yeah, it was a challenge. It's a challenge, and I mean, I would say most of my teammates that we're same year group. Most of us are out now. We talk about it all the time, and everybody has. I don't want to say it's like a rough first year. I mean, it's just different.
Right.
It's just different, and that's why I always tell people, when you're getting out, and you're looking for what's next, you just be prepared. It's going to be really different, but make sure you program time in for yourself and your family.
Right.
That was a mistake that I made. So yeah, learn from my mistake.
So John, we talked about some of the challenges you face, but since you've been with Kaatsu, like what are some of the most rewarding times you've had during your tenure at Kaatsu?
Oh, working with wounded guys, 100%.
Okay.
I spent the first 2 years in the company kind of chasing my tail a little bit, going after pro sport teams, college sport teams, and big physical therapy clinics. And I was successful to some degree at that, but I was way out of my comfort zone. I had to learn how to speak PT. I had to pretend I was, dialed in the sports world. I had to memorize people's stats and names, but I really had no freaking idea what I was talking about. When it comes to the military, it's second nature. And what we have found as a company is when you're dealing with guys that are wounded, ill, injured, and they're dealing with something like neuropathic pain is a big one, right? Whether somebody's completely paralyzed in the limb or if they have partial use of the limb, often neuropathic pain is an issue. Kaatsu helps with that significantly. Not doing exercise, but just doing those passive Kaatsu cycles that I was talking about earlier. And what I found is when I would sit down and spend time with wounded guys and I would show this to them, I was way in my element. I was very, very comfortable. It's easy and much more enjoyable. And it's one thing when you're working with an Olympic athlete, and you get an incremental change in performance with an elite athlete. And that's great for the athlete, the coaches and trainers, they love it. It's, oh my God, Michael Andrew is going to go 0.02 faster in this 50 because he's using Kaatsu as a warrant. And that's great. And nothing against that. I mean, that's part of our business model is helping athletes. But that's an incremental change. When you go like just 2 weeks ago, I was at Walter Reed, guy Justin, Marine. He was 4 months out of a amputation below the elbow. He was in a horrific car crash. But long story short, he had they ended up cutting it. They did all these surgeries to salvage the limb, and it was just too far gone. So when I met him, he was 4 months out of the amputation, but the pain at the stump, so right below the elbow here, the pain at that part of the stump where all the flesh was at the end was constant, just horrible neuropathic pain. It wasn't phantom limb pain. It was different. He didn't have phantom pain, but the way he described it was if you that feeling like if you were to take a ball being hammer and smash the tip of your little finger, that immediate like stinging intense pain, he said that's what it feels like all the time. I was like, oh my God. Well, we slapped Kaatsu on him, just on the one arm, just on the arm he was having the neuropathic pain. And I'm telling you, Redden, within like 7 minutes, so one cycle takes about 4 to 5 minutes. So he did almost 2 cycles, and he looks at me, and he's got like, his eyes are all watery, and he's like, dude, it's gone. I'm like, gone? He's like, well, it's not gone, but it's 80% better.
Oh.
And I'm like, so athlete, incremental, a little bit faster, somebody who is dealing with intense pain, can't even live a normal life, but you can make that a little better. That's exponential. Right. So that type of a change for somebody, I mean, that's the kind of shit that keeps me going. I love that. I don't even remember what your question was, but
no, that was it. That was just asking some of the the best experiences you've had since you started with Kaatsu, and does that happen often? Do you all like go and visit hospitals or?
Yeah, I mean, I probably should do it more. This is not a FDA cleared or FDA approved medical device. It's a physical therapy wellness device. Okay. So when you're talking about like introducing something in a clinical setting, like in a VA medical system, one of the first questions you get, is it a FDA cleared device? Has it been FDA approved? And the answer on this is no, not yet. We're going down that road. So really the only people we interact with on the clinical side are in the rehab centers, because you can use this in a rehab facility. And so yeah, we visit some places. It usually is more of a word of mouth type thing.
Okay.
where somebody hears about it from somebody else and they want to experience it. And what I'll do when I travel, I usually kind of bank the like I'll rent a car, and anything we know about within a 3 or 4 hour radius of that trip, and I'll just go visit people. And that's what I do. I slap it on them, I demo it, I just shoot the breeze with them, we talk about it, and if they like it, great. And if not, no harm, no foul. I go visit the next PT clinic or VA location or military unit. I do go and finish, or I do go and visit a fair amount of military units, especially in Site SOCOM. The Human Performance Program has HP centers all over the place. So I do visit guys there, but that's usually not really the wounded guys. That's more a human performance center, but it's good for that too. So, and it's enjoyable. It's in my comfort zone, you know.
So John, before we go to our second segment and finish up the podcast here, you mentioned earlier about working at a startup, right? Or recommending if they can to find a startup and work with them. What's like one actionable step that those for anybody listening who might be interested in a startup? What's one actionable step that they can kind of take right now and 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 working for a startup?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind, and this isn't necessarily for startups. This could be for about any organization. The Skill Bridge program.
Oh
When
yeah,
I
definitely.
when I retired, when I was going through transition, so I retired 4 years ago, but I went through transition like 5-ish. Skill Bridge wasn't really in place. It sort of was. I want to say there were like 4 companies nationwide that you could go do an internship. I think it was up to a 4-month internship or something at one of these places. And but none of the 4 that were available sounded any remotely appealing to me. But now with the Skill Bridge program, just about any organization that you want to go
Yeah.
work at, you can work with your command and get approval to do that. But I cannot stress enough the last thing I just said. Work with your command. So when you're, let's say you're 2 years out from transitioning out of the military, that's not too early to talk to the CMC, the Master Chief, or the commander, or the XO, or what depends on what kind of command you're at. But talking to your leadership team and letting them know, hey, I really want to be involved in this industry. I don't know, commercial real estate. There's an example, right? I really want to be involved in commercial real estate. I found an organization that would let me be an intern for 2 months, 3 months, 4 months. I would really like to do the Skill Bridge program to do it. If you have that conversation with the leadership team a year and a half, 2 years out before you get out, you're affording the team the opportunity to get somebody. You're allowing them the ability to
Right.
plan for you not being there.
Right. Right.
The big mistake I think a lot of people make is it's like, it's a year out, I don't have to worry. And then when they're 6 months out, they're like, oh, yeah, I'm going to get out. What's this Skill Bridge program? Oh, that sounds cool. And now the command is going to be like, dude,
Right. Right.
really? We can't get anybody here in 2 months or 2 weeks. I mean, we're not going to let you go anywhere. I mean, I did 2 CO tours and 1 XO tour, and I can't emphasize enough, the more that a member of the command works with the leadership team and keeps them in the know with what they're, because any good leader wants their people to succeed, not just in the military, but they want them to succeed after the military.
Right.
So good lead time, good planning. There's all kinds of things out there. I mean, TAP has all kinds of transition assistance, like checklists and things to follow. So that'd be one thing, the Skill Bridge program. Another thing that whether you think you deserve any level of disability or not, I would suggest that there's just about nobody in the military after spending 20 years in the military, anybody, any job description that you've done in the military, you've been exposed to something that is going to affect you later on in life as a result of your service. Absolutely go through the VA disability process.
Okay.
Even if all you get out of it is 10%, there's still things that come with that 10% there's so many things we can't even go into them all. It'd take a whole nother podcast, but it's really valuable, and take that seriously for sure. I'll just throw this out there as something that was suggested to me, and we did it, and it was good for our family. When you're navigating through your what's it called? Your terminal leave, and I think it's called your permissive TDY, terminal leave. You have the ability to bank leave and save up for this transition time, right? It was suggested to me early on that instead of using that time as a job hunt time, use that time as a chapter change, a pause, a go off the grid with your family if you can. Do something, but don't make it all about job hunting, because once you're in the new job, you're going to be freaking busy.
Yeah.
And you're going to be getting after it, kind of getting to what we were talking about earlier, right? Just go, go, go. So, you can easily have like 8 weeks between chapters. Your military chapter ends, your civilian chapter starts in industry. You could easily have 7, 8, 9, a good chunk of time here to really do something cool.
Yeah.
And you can use your imagination. There's all kinds of stuff you could do. I took my family and we did some space A travel all over the Pacific. It was really cool because you're still active duty,
right,
so you still got good priority. And the kids get to vote. You show up at a terminal. You want to go to Guam? You want to go to Okinawa? Well, 3 people for Guam, great. 2 for. All right, we're going to Guam. I mean, it's awesome, right? And you'll never get another chance to do that for your whole life. Some guys go on an RV trip. Some guy, whatever. But and that gets back to the timeline and the planning, because if you can determine what it is you want to do, whether we're talking skill bridge or just job interviews and that kind of stuff, if you can do all that shit before terminal leave starts, awesome.
Yeah.
Because if you can figure out what you want to do and have all the interviews done and get the job and be like, that's great. Okay, I can't start for 2 months because I want to do this, and this with my family, but I can't wait to work for this awesome company. They'll kind of look at you, what? Okay. But that's not what most people do. Most people use terminal leave and permissive TDY, and that's their interview job hunt time. And it's busy and it's stressful. When you're hunting, it's stressful. So, pros and cons to doing it the way we did it. Of course, pros and cons to everything. But I would suggest for my family, that was a big win.
Yeah, that's some great advice there. Definitely gonna keep that in mind. Space age travel, using that time away or that permissive TAD to spend time with some family. And then kind of like to your first point, right? Like skills rich program. I know when I first came in, that wasn't like, I've never even heard of that until years later in my career. And it's something that I think certain branches, the Navy doesn't really talk too much about it. And it's one of those things that is like people, sailors, any military member needs to hear about and kind of just take advantage of, to your point, because that's time that you can kind of prepare yourself to find that organization or that company that you can potentially work for, and use that apprenticeship, whatever you want to call it, time to to have gain that experience, right, while you're still active duty, and of course, with the approval from your chain of command. Definitely have to take advantage of that program.
Hey, Chief, I got one more suggestion too. Just a little. Start an LLC. Start your own. Go. Whoever you have help with your tax. If you don't have anybody help with your taxes, go find a guy or a girl and learn about how your state deals with an LLC. And I'll tell you why. Because you'll have the opportunity when you get out to be involved with all kinds of little side hustles. So it's called being a 1099 employee or a independent contractor. You're not even an employee, you're a 1099. People love retired military guys as 1099 independent consultants because they don't have to pay any of that extra stuff when it comes to a salaried employee. And most importantly, your medical as a retired military person is completely covered.
Right.
So when you're a 1099 independent contractor and somebody approaches you, I don't know, like Kaatsu, and says, hey, we're looking for somebody to be an affiliate and we'll give you a discount code and you could make money off anybody that buys one of these with your discount code. Would you want to do that? If you're a salaried W-2 employee at a company and you don't have an LLC, it's very hard to do that with, you can kind of cross wires and cause problems. If you have an LLC and everything you do is through your LLC, so my LLC is JD Performance LLC. I work for Kaatsu. Kaatsu pays JD Performance. If I were to do something else on the side and they wouldn't pay John Doolittle, they would pay JD Performance. And there's all kinds of tax benefits that come with that. And then the Doolittle family takes a salary from JD Performance.
Yeah.
So that was suggested to me early on, and I did that. And I still don't understand half of it. You got to have a good tax guy. And if you're a TurboTax guy and you do it all on your own, you're proud of that. Okay, that's great. When you start going down the road of LLCs and state laws and federal laws and W-2 jobs and side hustles and all kinds of different stuff, it gets really, really complicated quick. So a good tax guy is worth his or her weight in gold.
Man, that's boom. That's awesome advice there, John. I appreciate you for sharing that, and definitely gonna have to. I'm taking notes. I don't know if you saw me. I'm taking notes.
Yeah, I see you.
But yeah, so John, let's go into our second segment here of the podcast. So this is what I call the Fast Five. It's the same 5 questions I ask all my guests. John,
you got me nervous.
First question. What's one hobby you enjoy?
Kiteboarding.
Kiteboarding. Awesome. I'm sure you do a lot of that in St. Pete.
Only because there's no waves. Where I grew up surfing in California, but there's no waves. That's not fair. You can go to Cocoa Beach on the other coast, but kiteboarding is huge here. And it's cool in St. Pete because no matter where the wind's coming from, there's always a place to go kite, as long as there's wind.
Second question. If you had to choose one person to hang out with for one day, who would it be and why?
Jesus, man. Come on. Of course. I'd hang out with Jesus. I'd follow his footsteps for a day, man. That would be pretty cool.
Next question. Recommend a book for our audience to read. I think you already brought that up earlier.
If you are a military person and you're transitioning, read this book, Startup Nation by Dan Senor and Saul Singer. Okay. Startup Nation, the story of Israel's economic miracle. Great read. first business book I ever read.
I'm gonna have to check that out.
Yeah.
Startup Nation. All right. Next question. What's your favorite quote and why?
So for a long time in the teams, my signature block at the very bottom said, and I don't know whose quote it is, but I really like it. Don't confuse enthusiasm with capability. And I think that it applies to a lot in life. It definitely applies to business. It definitely applies to the military, especially in an organization where maybe you feel like you're an inch deep and a mile wide. When you're in a leadership position, everybody wants to say, yeah, we can do it. We can do this mission. Sir, give it to us. Let's go. But you just got to be careful. So don't confuse enthusiasm with capability. That's a good one, I think.
All right. So, John, last question. Where do you see yourself in a year, 5 years, or even 10 years from now?
Oh, in a year, I see myself still doing what I'm doing. I got Katie and I have one son that's a freshman at UCF in college, one son that's a senior in high school, and a daughter that's a freshman. So we'll still have two kids at the house, and charging on kind of same old, same old. So probably not too many differences in a year, other than we hope to kind of blow it up in the military and veteran space with Kaatsu.
Okay.
5 years, that's interesting because Sean will be out of college, Ryan will be graduating out of college, and Meg will be, if she goes to college, she'll be a sophomore, and Katie and I will have no kids in this house. That will be interesting.
More time to
I
travel.
think what'll happen in 5 years, I hope, if my CEO hears this, I hope I'm still with Kaatsu. I think in 5 years, the way it'll change for me is instead of my travel being just me, my travel will be a lot of times I'll take Katie with me. And my dad, he always said he worked for Southwest Bell in Pacific Telephone before that in California, senior VP of sales for all of Southwest Bell, like really successful guy. And he said, and this is kind of a lesson for anybody listening, when you're in a job that takes a lot of your being to do well at it, anytime you can involve your spouse in any aspect of that, it's a big win. And he said that once with my mom standing right there, and she rattled off the 5 times that he took her on work trips. Like she remembered everything about every one of the trips. So yeah, I think in 5 years, still be working for Kaatsu, and I'll be traveling with Katie a lot more.
That's awesome.
10 years, whew, I'll be 61, so I guess I won't have to be retired, like retired. But yeah, I don't know if I'll ever be able to retire, man. I think I can't imagine not having maybe I won't be with Kaatsu still then, but I'll be involved with more nonprofits. Maybe stuff at the church. We're part of St. Paul's Parish here in St. Petersburg, and we try to do a lot of stuff with St. Paul's, but it's hard, man, because Katie works, I work, 3 kids, schools, It's hard to do a lot of the nonprofit stuff that we would like. So maybe more of that. And let's see, Sean's 19, so maybe he'll be 29. Maybe we'll have grandkids by then. Whoa.
Imagine that. That's awesome, man. And hopefully, yeah, you'll have more time, you and your wife, to travel and create more memories.
Yeah.
But John, I appreciate you again for taking the time. Like I said, I was taking a lot of notes here. Appreciate you for some of the knowledge bumps that you've provided our audience here. One final thing before we go, where can our audience follow you? Where can they support you at?
So I'm on LinkedIn. That's probably my main social media thing, and it's work based. But what's good about LinkedIn, and this is another transition thing. It's a really good little black book, your address book.
Right.
The problem with Facebook is there's just so much drama associated with different stuff. LinkedIn at least tries to keep everything professional. They fail a lot, but it's a great way to track guys down or keep in touch with people, especially as they transition out. What you'll find is all your teammates, they're all transitioning too. And if they're
Yeah.
not at the same time, they will within a couple of years on either side of you transitioning. And you want to keep tabs on all of them from a business perspective, because those are trusted relationships. The biggest issue in industry is trust, in my opinion. If you're going to work with somebody and there's going to be money changing hands, and if there's not trust, it's hard, man.
Yeah.
But build your LinkedIn network, build a profile, and build the hell out of that network. So I'm on there. If you put John Doolittle Kaatsu, you'll absolutely find me. And I got like 17,000 people on it. Just any of your listeners or people watching, link up with me on LinkedIn. We do have affiliate programs for Kaatsu. So if guys want an easy way to do a side hustle, and this is even something you can do when you're active duty, you just got to make sure the Master Chief or XO knows about it. No issues. We have plenty of people doing that. Our website is kaatsu.com, KAATSU.com. And in kaatsu.com, it says our team, and I'm in there, and my email, you just click the link. Or my email is jd@kaatsu.com, jd@kaatsu.com. And anybody that reaches out to me and references this this podcast, I'll absolutely make time for you. If you want a discount code, I'll absolutely give you at least a 10% discount code.
Yeah, we can put that in the show notes.
Oh yeah. As a matter of fact, I'll just give it to you right now. It's MFPR, Mike Foxtrot Papa Romeo. MFPR. It's the discount code that we give to military personnel.
Awesome, man. Well, John, I appreciate you for again for taking the time and dropping all the knowledge on our audience here. And yeah, definitely LinkedIn. I mean, that's how we met. Make sure you guys.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, make sure you guys have your LinkedIn game is strong. So and continue to network and reach out to John for any questions that you may have with Kaatsu, or maybe even starting up your own organization or company. So John, again, I appreciate you for taking the time, and hopefully I'll talk to you soon, brother.
All right, Ren. Take care, Chief. Thank you very much, and thanks for having me on, and thanks for your service, brother. I appreciate everything you're doing. I know you're still active duty. I don't know how the hell you made time to do this, but thanks for doing it.
Appreciate it. Thank you. All right.
Awesome. Thanks, man.